How's it going, everyone? My name is Zavage, and oh my gosh, is there a lot to talk about today. Yesterday marked the first day of World of Warcraft Shadowlands alpha testing. Unfortunately, we ourselves did not get into the alpha, but that's okay. We were all over Twitch listening to people's streams. We were watching people doing testing. We were constantly on the threads and Wowhead looking for any information that was coming out that we could keep up to date with. And while doing our best to prevent spoiling anything for ourselves, so do be careful. For people who are worried about spoilers, do be careful when you're browsing on Wowhead. With all the data mining that they're doing, there is a lot of spoiler information on there. So just be careful of that when you're browsing their website. But to start that off, there was so much exciting information that we got yesterday, and it has only amped our excitement for Shadowlands. Be that a good thing or bad thing, because last thing I want to do is get absolutely pumped and then be let down on launch. But right now they are saying all the right things, doing all the right things, making all the right changes, and it is a delight. Now, I don't want to bore you guys with my ranting, so we're just going to jump right into some of the things that I found to be the most important things to take away from yesterday's information. And that, starting off, is going to be the current testing map that they have planned, right? So for those of you who don't know, with the alpha testing, they are doing it in segments of terms of available content. So they're not releasing everything right away, and that's probably for the best. This is going to allow them to break down the reports and target things a little more easily in a more concentrated fashion. So right now, the current level cap is level 53, and the primary zone is Bastion right now. The other thing you have access to is the Necrotic Wake Dungeon and the Kyrian Covenants. In terms of the new leveling experience, you can only do it on a level 1 Alliance character. I know, Alliance bias, right? No. Unfortunately, for those of you who wanted to check out allied races and how it starts at level 10, can't do that. Only level 1 Alliance characters right now, but that's okay. All right. Over the next few weeks, however, they do plan to release more things for custom character creation, as well as increasing the new player experience. Coming soon is also going to be Torghast and the Tower of the Damned. That's probably one of the most exciting things people are looking forward to testing, as that is going to be a very key feature of Shadowlands that people are looking forward to. Along with that is going to be the Revendreth Zone, Halls of Atonement Dungeon, and Oribos, the capital. Now, much further down the line is going to be the rest of the zones: Ardenweld, Maldraxxus, Miss of Tirnaseath Dungeon, I don't know how to pronounce it, sue me, Plaguefall, and the rest of the character customization. So that's all really exciting. Hopefully it's broken down in enough space that people are able to do proper testing. I also like to believe that because they're having multiple phases of this alpha testing, that maybe they'll have multiple waves of invites for people. So maybe if you haven't gotten into the alpha, there's still a chance that you could, because there'll also always be beta. But if they do multiple waves for alpha, that'd be really great, because, you know, there's a lot of people who log into alpha for a day or two and then they never log in again. So I hope that they, you know, keep the amount of people that they have alpha testing up in terms of people who have access to it. That way they're getting consistent feedback and there's no real like lulls in terms of people testing things. It's better to have more people testing stuff, because that way you have a broader range of experiences with each element that you have available. Now, the next biggest thing that we got information about is probably one of the biggest in my opinion, and that is crafting. Crafting is essentially being brought back to a time of value. One thing that professions have lacked over the last couple of expansions have been really having any actual value to anything at all outside of alchemy, you know, potions and all that, and food. But now they are throwing it back, going back to the roots, and they are bringing back valuable crafting items in all the categories, and some of them interconnect with other professions as well, which is really awesome to see also. But just to get a taste of it, Alchemy, all right? Alchemy, they are bringing back oils. So different kind of oils. Those of you who are currently playing Classic, you know, there's the good old Wizard Oil increasing spell power, but now there's going to be two new ones called Embalmer's Oil and Shadow Core Oil. And on top of that, there's going to be potions that are added in that interact with those oils and have effects that coexist with them. So for example, Potion of Empowered Exorcisms. Your damaging spells and abilities have a chance to erupt your target's anima, dealing X amount of shadow damage to all enemies within 10 yards of the target. If you consume this potion while your weapon is augmented with Shadow Core Oil, the additional damage and range is increased by 20%. Lasts for 25 seconds. So that's pretty cool. So they are having Alchemy have a little bit of a play off of each other in terms of which oils you use, and it's going to have certain effects on things. There's some here that involve doing healing and increasing your output on healing, as well as, you know, reducing the damage that other people might do. And there's a lot of cool things with it. Back down into blacksmithing. So they are bringing back weight stones, sharpening stones, and other things that are going to be really cool that you can use on weapons. So for all those people that don't have, you know, weapon enchantments or weapon imbuements like shamans, you're gonna have something like this. Grim Iron Shackles increases your critical strike by X amount for an hour, increases blunt damage by X amount for an hour, increases your weapon damage, increases your auto attack damage, and increases your auto attack damage. These are for different levels of effect. So that's really cool to see that these things are coming back as well. And I know a lot of people are going to be looking forward to that. On top of that, right here, including possible legendary armor. So these crafting professions are also, for those who don't know, legendaries are going to be crafted. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Cooking is going to be really valuable again. There's going to be food that provide a bunch of secondary stat buffs, aside from, you know, your normal ones. There's going to be zone specific foods that are really cool. There's going to be stuff that allows you to levitate while in certain zones, allow you to gain move speed, allow you to gain leech, allow you to do nature damage, allow you to heal out of combat more quickly. So just some really cool things that are going to be nice. I know there's a lot of people who are looking forward to the speed food in order to utilize that in open world collections and certain other things with dungeons for getting around quickly. So that is going to be really cool for cooking. Now, probably one of the biggest ones is going to be enchanting. They are bringing back the ability to enchant all of your main stuff again. You know, the last few expansions, enchanting's been really limited to some specific slots, and now it's coming back to chest, cloak, boots, bracers, gloves. Awesome. Enchanting is going to be so incredibly valuable again. And now you're going to definitely probably always want to have an enchanter in your group. So if you're running those pre-mades mythics, make sure someone's an enchanter so that anybody that gets loot that they don't need gets DE'd, because you're going to want enchantments on all those pieces of gear. So one of those things that's really cool about this, we'll talk about later, and is why it's really awesome that enchanting's coming back on top of that. Naturally, there's new weapon enchantments as well. I'll include links to all of these articles in the description so that you guys can go through each individual thing yourself. But enchanters are also going to be able to make a top tier reagent for other professions. So enchanted desolate leather, enchanted lightless silk, and enchanted, probably it's supposed to be like enchanted desolate bars for blacksmithing. But I imagine those will probably be materials that we need for crafting said legendaries later on. So that is really great. Engineers are getting some pretty cool gadgets and gizmos again that are going to be able to play roles in PvP, essentially, assuming that they are allowed in battlegrounds. But you're going to have things like a shadow landmine. Place a landmine on the ground and explodes when an enemy steps on it, dealing shadow damage to all enemies in a 5-yard radius and blasting them away. However, the engineer can also trigger the mine themselves, but does not take damage from it. So if you are able to also blast yourself and get that knockback effect, you know, essentially you could use that as a way to implement some space between yourself and your enemy, as well as use it to boost yourself towards someone. There's a lot of cool things with that. You're also getting some belt enchantments back. So for all you people who had all your belt gadgets in the past, there are going to be some new ones that, you know, attach device to your belt that suspends several small bladed weapons around you, causing attackers to take damage. So reflect. This one is going to allow you to attempt to turn invisible while out of combat. And this one's going to allow you to instantaneously port a short distance. So I imagine this one will probably be looked at as the most valuable, especially if it's usable in PvP, because that's going to allow you to have some sort of mobility utility just on any class. But we don't know how far the distance is. Could be 5 feet, could be 10 feet. We don't know. We'll just have to wait and find out once people can get their hands on it. Jewelcrafting. Jewel crafters, you know, back are going to be able to make their usual stuff. Not too much of a change for them. However, they are going to have a ability to make enhanced gems, and you're going to be able to use these enhanced gems with your armor crafting. And this is going to allow you to target stats that you want on that piece of gear. So if you're making a piece of gear, normally it's going to roll with random stats on it. However, if you choose to use a quick jewel cluster with that, and it's part of the optional crafting reagent, it is going to guarantee haste as a secondary stat on an item. So this is going to allow you to target stats that you desire on crafted pieces as well. So they are really honestly putting the power of what you want on your gear back into the player's hands, and that is fantastic. They're eliminating a lot of RNG elements, and that is always great to see, and it's putting a lot of value back into professions. So, you know, you're really going to see the economy booming in Shadowlands, I would like to hope. Lastly, good old stuff, leatherworking. You're going to be able to make drums again. However, they're not going to be as good as previous drums, but like all the other armor crafting professions, you're also going to be able to make your legendaries, and you're going to be able to make armor kits once again, which are going to just simply increase the stamina of an item. And that is going to be just a nice thing to have back as just a fun little crafting profession piece, a little bit of a throwback, as they say. So that's all really exciting for professions. Really looking forward to how that's going to shake up the economy and make people have to depend on other people. Now, naturally, the hardcore people will have like 5 characters that have all the professions and do everything themselves. But a lot of people like dedicating themselves to 1 or 2 characters, and they don't mind, you know, buying or selling off the marketplace, auction house, trade chat in order to get what they need. Now, those were the posts of information that happened today that were really awesome. But on top of that, there was another update today. Now, a lot of you in the last couple days, there was some very undesirable information that came out, and that was about the target caps on AoE's. They've further commented on that, saying that their plans are for it to be pretty much in certain situations, and that in situations where a target cap won't make sense, they're adding a new kind of damage fall off that is going to cause the damage done to each target to be greatly reduced and gradually as the number of targets increase. So as more targets come into the area, so if say you get up to, you know, 15, it's going to reduce the amount of damage by a lot, thus drawing out the encounter and making it more dangerous or more challenging. But part of that is just that some classes were benefiting too much from having uncapped AoE's and others weren't benefiting enough from having capped AoE's. And so they're trying to find a balance in a way that, you know, puts a cap on certain AoE's for some classes in order to help scale things back a little bit. Now, obviously, that's really great for Mythic Plus particularly, but I know a lot of people have concerns about it for older content as well as just, you know, general gameplay. But it shouldn't be that impactful if they're going to have it be in situations where the damage fall off doesn't matter and it's just going to be, you know, reduced damage, and it's still going to be, you know, AoE's are still going to be really great to have, and you're still going to want to have those moments where you do large pulls. It just won't be as focused on doing large pulls. So that's really cool. Now, for those of you who don't know, yesterday as well, during all this alpha release information, there was a fantastic interview with Ian Hazakostas on Sloot's channel on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Sloot. Definitely go give the guy some love. He got a lot of information for the community in his interview with Ian that a lot of people are really excited about. But if you missed it, we're going to recap it a little bit and talk about some of the key points that were probably, in my opinion, the most important. So first things first, and this is probably the most important thing out of everything, in my opinion. Warforging, Titanforging, corruption, gone, dead, no more. That's it. What you get is what you get. When the loot drops, that's the piece. No more RNG on terms of, well, is there a better version of it? No. That better version is going to be you enchanting it. So that is going to be really nice for enchanting as well. It makes that piece of gear more valuable as well. You know, if you're an enchanter, hey, that guy got a new piece of gear. There you go. Get after it. You want to top him off, make him have that best piece that he wants. Do your guild a favor. Now, that is the greatest thing I have heard about it. And so I'm just happy. I'm relieved that that is just completely gone entirely from the game. I know I myself did not like it, and many others did not like it. It made it feel not great when you got just a normal piece and your friend over there who's new to the raid got, you know, a freaking Warforged or Titanforged piece that was, you know, way better than yours. And you're just like, well, what the hell? So I just got unlucky. But that's okay, because that's all gone. Now, on top of that, my only concern, and I don't believe it's going to be a concern, ultimately, is that I hope that this does not shift too much of a focus onto Mythic Plus being a requirement, gear-wise. As long as the Mythic Plus gear is not on the same level as raid gear, then it's fine. But if you put Mythic Plus gear on the same level as raid gear, then essentially you're just going to force people to do Mythic Plus as much as possible so that they are as raid gear equivalent as possible when doing these raids. Now, I think that they are not going to be having that. They are going to be a lower eye level. And because of that, they are looking for other ways to incentivize rewarding players for doing Mythic Plus. So some of those things are going to be, for example, putting in, you know, ahead of the curve like achievements for Mythic Plus, instead of having, you know, better loot, things like that. I know a lot of people would love to have challenge modes back. I think that would be really cool if they could implement some type of challenge mode system along with the Mythic Plus system. That would give a lot of people really cool things to work for, or just having, you know, Mythic Plus seasonal goals that give you unique titles, cosmetics, something that's tied into your character that allows you to flex your stuff without it necessarily being eye level dependent. Now, part of that, so that it doesn't feel like Mythic Plus is just this thing that you have to invest yourself into no matter what all the time, is that they're talking about doing a shared loot chest at the end of the week. So right now for the weekly loot system, you have a PvP chest and you have a PvE chest. And basically what that's doing right now is it's forcing you to min-max yourself by playing two aspects of the game that maybe one of them you don't necessarily want to do. And that kind of sucks for some people. You know, basically it feels that you're required, in order to maximize getting the best gear possible, you have to have really high PvP rating and you have to do really high keys all the time. They're changing that, or they're talking about changing it, and the best way they're going to go about that right now is talking about doing shared chests, and that is going to be that, you know, when you do more Mythic Plus or you do more PvP, that is going to increase your loot pool of options that you get at the end of the week from the chest. So the more content you do, the more variety of options you'll have, because they do still want it to be that if you are a person who is capable of excelling as a player in multiple aspects of the game, they do feel that you should be rewarded a little bit more than people who just prefer to excel in one aspect of the game. But they don't want it to be too egregious or anything like that. So one of the ways they're going to do that is that, if you got really high PvP rating and you're doing a lot of PvP, you're also doing really high keys all week long, great. You're going to have a very large pool of loot to select from to get what you want from that chest at the start of every new week versus somebody who just does one or the other. Now, this is also going to be dependent upon how many Mythic Pluses you do. So if you only do just the one Mythic Plus, your options are going to be pretty low, but you will still get something. But if you do a lot of Mythic Plus all week long, that's going to increase the type and amount of loot that you get access to. So that's really cool. So they're trying to incentivize ways for you to do more, so that you still get rewarded for it and you don't just feel like you just have to do the one on the, start of the week or end of the week. So that's really cool. Now, one of the biggest problems they had was the, feeling of the power of classes coming from items and not the class itself. And that is something that is being adjusted as well. And they are planning to do two things in order to fix that. So I know everybody knows the biggest one was the star with corruption, and it pretty much determined whether or not you were, top dog DPS in a lot of situations, especially when it was first out. And now they are planning to tune back a lot of passive bonus options, so that the passive options, they want those to be suboptimal. They want them to be kind of middle ground. If it procs, great. It helps boost you a little bit, but it's not going to be determinant in whether or not you're top DPS or you're rewarded for that. They really want to go back to rewarding players who are skilled and able to execute their class in an effective manner versus item and procs rewarding your performance instead. So the first thing they're going to do is tune back everything in terms of the values and the power of them so that they're not as strong. Second is going to be adjusting the way the procs work, trying to make them a little bit more of a consistent or more accurate proc per minute system instead of being, more random. Because that was one of the issues as well, is that even if you have something that is a passive based proc, it being, totally determined on getting those good procs multiple times in a row versus, you might have just this drought of no procs and it just screws you, right? So those are two things that they're looking for adjusting on that. They really want to put the power of the class and the player back in the player's hands and have that be the determinant for how you perform, and less about the items themselves, but the items are still going to matter, just not as much on a passive scale. The on-use items they want to, put up a little bit more as well, so that, you are making the right decision on when to use it. You're not using it at the wrong moment and you're getting the most out of it. And that's going to be one of those things that determines the difference between good players and bad players who know how to effectively use these items at the right times. Ah, man, guys, there is so much. We're not even just like, whoa. Torghast was a really big one. So we mentioned that earlier, Torghast. That is going to be one of the key elements of content that people are going to be focusing around throughout all of Shadowlands. People are looking at Torghast as basically the replacement to Mage Tower. It's supposed to be this type of content that you can do repeatably over and over and over, and it's always changing, and it's this really great experience. Now, they're still going to be trying to figure out the best way to give access to the tower. They don't necessarily want to have it be one of those things that you can do it all the time, nonstop, 24/7, whenever you want. but they don't want to put a limiter on it that would be too excessive and, you know, have it be just this really limiting thing. They want you to be able to do it on a pretty regular basis, on a pretty free basis, just not all the time. So there will be some restrictions on it. You know, they do also want to have it be, maybe the more you play or the more you do certain things in the game, that rewards you with more access to the tower. That way people who are putting in more time have more time to do, certain things in the game. And that, some people will be upset about that. Be like, oh, it's not fair. I don't have time to do that. Well, that's unfortunate. But if they're putting more time into the game, they're going to get more out of it versus people who put less time into the game. That's just kind of how gaming goes. Usually when you put more time into something, you're going to see more rewards or reap the benefits of it versus people who put less time into the game. That's just how it is, unfortunately. But I imagine this is going to go through multiple changes throughout alpha and beta. Nothing's final right now, guys. But some of the rewards that are going to come from the tower that they're talking about, Ian talked about, were cosmetics, prestige, some story-based events are going to come from there, and legendary schematics, right? So those legendaries, coming back around to those again. Pretty exciting things. Speaking of legendaries, let's talk about these. Legendaries right now, from what Ian said in his interview, is that the initial design around them is that they are going to be craftable. So once again, professions. They are going to be very valuable. They are going to be the source of crafting the legendaries, and that those are going to come from being learned in Torghast, the Maw, and a couple other undisclosed locations that he was not revealing at the time. So that's pretty exciting that, the schematics for these legendaries are going to come from multiple locations. And one of the biggest things about it is that from the get-go, I even joked about it with the account-wide essences. These are going to be account-wide right away. So when you learn a recipe for a legendary, you know it on any character on your account. And so that's really awesome. You're not going to have to go refarm them, do anything like that. You're just going to have them. And that was really exciting for people in the chat. Everybody was pogging. Everybody was excited. It's now let's just hope they can get around to that for covenants, covenants. That's for another time. But your legendaries are supposed to be these items that are forged by the guy who originally made Frostmourne. And so basically, the whole thing for them is that the legendaries are intended to be like origin pieces from the original Legion legendaries and from older set bonuses on gear. And so basically they plan to have these legendaries, their effects are going to be effects that are similar to what old legendary effects were, as well as old set gear effects were. And something that might be a hint to this is that later in the day, after that interview, actually, Holinka posted on Twitter asking people what were their favorite legendaries, favorite set effects, and favorite just item effects from previous expansions in the game. And, that raised some questions for people like, hey, is this how they're going to try to see what are some really popular favorites for, things on legendaries. Now, I think they have a pretty good idea of what legendaries, what effects they're going to use or want to use. They might have just like this pool of options for each category. And in turn, maybe, they're going to see like, all right, let's see what kind of things do people really want? Let's see what people are talking about, just so they can get a feel, maybe narrow it down a little bit better, please the crowd a little bit. We'll see. Who knows? But that is really awesome to see as well. There is just so much going on with this, guys. And so far, the last few days, there's been dev blog posts every single day. So hopefully there'll be more today and more coming in the future. There is just so much to be excited for with Shadowlands at the moment. It seems like they're doing all the right things with the class changes, with the profession changes, with how they're doing everything, and loot changes. The loot is probably one of the biggest ones. Just having that, knowing that when you get a piece of gear, boom, that's it, baby. You got it. you don't have to worry about it anymore. But in turn, they are going to be reducing the amount of loot coming from those raid drops as well. So that is the bit of the trade-off there, but that doesn't matter. It's okay. Be happy. I'm happy. But guys, thank you so much for watching. It was just so much information to digest today, and that wasn't even all of it. But I had a lot of fun, you know, going around everybody's streams, talking to people, asking questions, finding out everything, because I want to be able to share it with you guys. I do plan going forward to make more videos in general, just talking about everything, talking about MMOs, talking about WoW, and all these other games that are coming up, because I am excited about them. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about some of these changes, these adjustments that are coming into the game. What are your favorite set effects from previous expansions and previous legendary effects as well? I'd love to know which ones you guys like the most, as well as, you know, what might be your concerns about some of these changes or things that you're excited about. You can find me on twitch.tv/Zavage and Twitter @Zavage_, and we will be around and looking forward to hearing from you guys. Have a good one.